My parents abandoned my sister when she needed them most. She was just 22, scared, and carrying a child she never planned for. And me? I was the one who opened the door. That day's still clear in my mind. The sky was gray, heavy, like it wanted to cry for us. I remember driving to my parents' house, my hands shaking on the wheel. When I got there, my sister was sitting on the front steps with one suitcase and her old denim jacket pulled tight around her belly. She looked like a child who'd been left out in the rain. When she saw me, her lip trembled. They said I can't come back, Mary. They said I embarrassed the family. I wrapped my arms around her, and she just crumbled. No words, no sound, just sobbing into my coat. I helped her into my car, loaded that single bag, and took her home. I didn't think twice. Blood is blood. And I wasn't going to let my sister sleep on the streets while carrying a baby. My house was small, 2 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, but it was warm and safe. I made her a cup of tea, set it in her hands, and told her, "You're safe now, all right? Whatever happens, we'll face it together." She nodded, eyes red and swollen, and for the first time that day, she whispered, "Thank you." The days that followed were quiet, too quiet. She barely ate. She'd sit by the window, staring out like she was waiting for someone to come get her. I'd hear her crying in the shower sometimes. You ever hear a sound that just splits you open? That was it. I tried to cheer her up with small things, bought her a blanket, cooked her favorite chicken stew, even found that old gospel record we used to sing to. Slowly, she started to come back to life. Then one morning, I came home from work and found her in the kitchen, smiling. She'd made pancakes, sensed she wanted to help out. I hugged her right there, thought maybe the worst had passed. But trouble has a way of sneaking up when you least expect it. About 2 weeks later, I got a call. It was Mama. Her voice was cold, sharp. "You think you're doing the right thing, Mary? Bringing that shame into your home?" I said, "She's my sister. She needed someone." Mama sighed real heavy. "You always think you can fix everybody, but you can't fix this." Then she hung up. That silence stayed with me all evening. My sister saw it on my face, but didn't ask. She was too busy knitting little baby socks she couldn't afford yarn for. I didn't tell her about the call. I didn't want her to know how deep the wound went. That night, I sat on the edge of my bed and prayed. "Lord, give me strength. Let me carry her until she can carry herself." I didn't know it then, but that prayer would be tested in more ways than I could imagine. Spring came around slow that year. My sister's belly grew, and so did the bills. My savings started slipping away. Medicine, groceries, doctor visits. I never told her how tight things were. She'd been through enough. I picked up extra shifts at the diner, came home bone-tired, feet aching. Some nights I'd just sit at the kitchen table, staring at the stack of unpaid notices, trying not to cry. She'd come out, rubbing her belly, saying, "Go to bed, Mary. I'll handle dishes." And she did, for a while. She tried. But pregnancy has a way of breaking a woman down. Some days she could barely stand. I'd find her dozing on the couch with the TV still on. Then one morning I woke up to the smell of burnt toast. She was sitting there, crying over a broken plate. "I can't even do this right," she said. I took her hand and told her, "Stop talking like that. You're going to be fine. We both are." I meant it. But deep down, I was scared. By the time she went into labor, we were barely scraping by. I pawned my wedding ring to pay the hospital bill. Didn't even hesitate. That ring meant love, but this meant family. When the baby came, she named him Isaiah. Tiny little thing, full head of hair, cried like the world owed him answers. I remember holding him the first time. My heart just melted. For a moment, all the pain, all the worry, it faded. That baby was a blessing, a new start. But life don't stay sweet for long. When she came home from the hospital, things shifted. She was different, snappy, cold. I thought it was just hormones. But some nights, I'd wake up to her on the phone, whispering, then hanging up quick when I came close. One day, I asked, "Who's calling you so late?" She said, "Just a friend. None of your business, Mary." The way she said it, like I was some stranger. I didn't push it, but I should have. Because a few weeks later, she came home late, clothes rumpled, smelling like cheap perfume and trouble. She looked me straight in the eye and said, "I need you to watch Isaiah tomorrow. I got somewhere to be." I said, "Where?" She grabbed her purse, "Just somewhere," and she left. That night, I stood by the crib, watching that baby breathe. Tiny chest rising and falling. I whispered, "You safe here, little one. I promise." I didn't know I'd be making that promise alone. She didn't come back the next day, or the day after. By the third morning, I stopped calling her phone. Every ring felt like a slap, straight to voicemail. Isaiah was crying more than usual, hungry all the time. I used the last of the baby formula that week. When it ran out, I boiled rice water like my mama used to when times got tough, fed him with a spoon, praying he'd sleep. I sat by that crib and stared at the door for hours. Every car that passed made my heart jump. I thought maybe she'd walk in, maybe she'd say sorry, maybe this was all just some crazy misunderstanding, but she didn't. 2 weeks went by before I finally went to the police. They said she was an adult, that she'd come back if she wanted to. One officer shrugged and said, "Happens all the time." I wanted to scream at him, tell him that wasn't my sister, that she wasn't the kind of girl who'd just walk away. But the truth? I didn't even know her anymore. So I went home, picked up that baby, and did what I knew best. I took care of him. Those months were hard, real hard. I'd wake up early, go to work, come back to feed him, rock him, sing him old church songs till he slept. Some nights I'd just sit by his crib and whisper, "You ain't alone, baby. Auntie's here." My neighbors started to notice. Some brought diapers, others gave hand-me-down clothes. I was too proud to ask, but the kindness helped. One night, I was folding laundry when the phone finally rang. It was her. My hand trembled so bad I almost dropped it. "Where are you?" I said. Her voice was tired, slurred almost. "Don't worry about me, Mary. I just need time." "Time? You left your child." Silence. Then a soft sob. "I can't do it. I'm not like you. I can't be that strong." I wanted to yell. I wanted to tell her she had to come home. But something in her voice broke me. I just said, "Then at least tell me you're okay." She whispered, "Not really," and hung up. After that, nothing. Weeks turned to months. I raised Isaiah like my own. He started calling me Mama before he could even say Auntie. I didn't correct him. I couldn't. Sometimes I'd sit on the porch at sunset, watching the sky turn orange, holding that little boy close. I'd whisper, "Your mama loves you. She's just lost right now." I said it for him. But truth be told, I was saying it for myself. By the time Isaiah turned 3, he was the light of my life. He'd run around the house laughing, dragging his toy truck across the floor, making more noise than a marching band. That sound, it filled all the empty places my heart had left. Every birthday, I baked him a cake. Nothing fancy, just yellow cake with canned frosting. I'd stick 3 candles on top and help him blow them out. Neighbors would say, "Mary, you're doing God's work raising that boy." I'd smile and say, "God gave me what I needed when I didn't even know I needed it." But deep down, I still thought about her, every single day. I kept a box under my bed with her letters, photos, and that hospital bracelet from when Isaiah was born. I'd look at it some nights and wonder where she was sleeping, if she was safe, if she ever thought of us. Then one evening, just as the sun was going down, the doorbell rang. Isaiah was coloring on the floor. I wiped my hands on a dish towel, went to the door, and opened it. There she was, my baby sister. She looked nothing like I remembered. Her hair was shorter, her face thinner, eyes sunken, clothes hanging loose. "Mary," she said, voice trembling, "can I come in?" For a moment, I couldn't speak. Every memory, every tear, every night I'd prayed for her came rushing back all at once. I just nodded. She stepped inside, and when Isaiah saw her, he froze. He looked at her like a stranger. She tried to smile. "Pie, baby," but he hid behind my leg. That sound she made then, it wasn't even a sob. It was something deeper. I led her to the couch, poured her some water, and sat across from her. She said, "I messed up, Mary. I lost everything. I've been living in shelters, doing whatever I had to just to get by. I didn't know where else to go." I didn't say a word, just listened. She reached for my hand. Can I see him, please?" I looked over at Isaiah. He was standing there with that crayon still in his hand, just staring. I said, "He's right here, but he don't know who you are yet." Tears rolled down her cheeks. I deserve that. We sat there in silence for a long time, just the sound of that old wall clock ticking, 1 second after another, stretching out forever. Finally, I said, "You can stay tonight. We'll talk in the morning." She nodded, and for the first time in 3 years, my house held all 3 of us again. Only thing was, peace didn't come with it. That night, I barely slept. I could hear her moving around in the guest room, soft footsteps, the sound of drawers opening and closing. Every creak made me nervous, not because I didn't love her, but because I didn't trust the silence between us. When morning came, I made coffee and scrambled some eggs. She came out wearing one of my old sweaters. Her eyes were red, like she hadn't slept either. Isaiah was sitting at the table, swinging his little legs. He looked at her, then at me, unsure. She smiled, a fragile little smile, and said, "Good morning." He didn't answer, just turned his face away and started eating. She blinked fast, fighting tears. "He looks just like his daddy," she whispered. I froze. I hadn't heard her mention that man in years. "You still talking to him?" I asked. She shook her head quick. "No, he moved on long time ago." She sipped her coffee slow. I think about what could have been." I wanted to comfort her, but something in me hesitated. Maybe it was fear. Maybe it was the memory of that night she walked out without a goodbye. After breakfast, I went to work. When I came back, she was sitting on the porch with Isaiah, braiding wildflowers into his toy truck. It looked peaceful, like maybe, just maybe, things could heal. But healing ain't simple. It's not something you can cook up in a day. That evening, she said she wanted to help out, find a job, start over. I told her she could stay as long as she needed, but we'd need to talk about what that meant. Her voice cracked. "I just want a chance to be his mother again." My chest tightened. "He's been through enough confusion, baby. Take it slow." "I will," she said. But her eyes said something else. They were hungry, desperate. The next few days were strange. Some mornings she'd wake up early, make breakfast, play with Isaiah. Other days she'd disappear for hours. No explanation, no call. One night, I asked her, "Where you been?" She looked at me, shoulders tense. "Don't start, Mary. I'm grown." I sighed. "I ain't trying to start nothing. I just worry." "Well, stop," she said, voice sharp. "You always gotta control everything." That cut deep. I turned away, biting my tongue. Isaiah came running into the room then, holding a toy. He stopped when he saw our faces. "Mama," he said softly, looking at me, Then he turned to her. "Auntie?" She froze. Her mouth trembled. "No, baby. I'm your mama." He frowned. "No, you not." The room went silent. She burst into tears, ran to her room, and slammed the door. I just stood there, holding Isaiah, feeling the weight of both their pain on my shoulders. That night, I prayed again. "Lord, I took her in. I did what was right. Please tell me why it still hurts this bad." I didn't get an answer, just the sound of rain tapping the window, steady and cold. Over the next few weeks, things started falling apart again. She found a part-time job cleaning offices at night. I was proud of her for trying, but soon enough, the old patterns came creeping back. Late nights, strange calls, missing cash from my purse. I told myself I was imagining it, that she was trying her best, but deep down, I knew better. One Friday evening, I came home early from work. Isaiah was watching cartoons on the couch. My sister's bag was open on the table. Something told me to look inside. There was a wad of cash, too much for cleaning money, and a man's gold chain. My hands started shaking. I zipped the bag up and waited. When she came home that night, she looked surprised to see me awake. "Hey," she said, trying to sound casual. "Why you up?" I said, "You want to tell me where this came from?" and held up the chain. Her face went pale. "That's not what it looks like." "Then tell me what it is." She looked down, tears filling her eyes. "I just borrowed it. I was gonna give it back." "Borrowed from who?" She didn't answer. I felt that old pain rise up in my chest. "You can't keep living like this. You got a son who needs you. He deserves better." She snapped. "Don't you judge me. You think you so holy, Mary, but you ain't perfect either." I took a step back. "You right. I ain't perfect, but I never ran from my responsibilities." For a long moment, we just stood there. Two sisters, both tired, both broken in our own ways. Then Isaiah's little voice cut through the air. "Mama, stop yelling!" We both turned. He was standing there in his pajamas, clutching that old stuffed bear. His eyes were wet. She crumbled then, dropped to her knees, and started sobbing. "I'm sorry, baby. I'm so sorry." I knelt beside her, put my hand on her back. She leaned into me, crying harder. We stayed like that for a long time. I thought maybe this time she'd change for real. Maybe this was her turning point. But I was wrong. A few quiet days followed after that night. She stopped going out late, helped around the house, read Isaiah bedtime stories in that soft voice she used to have. For a little while, it felt almost normal. I started thinking maybe she'd finally turned a corner. Then, one afternoon, I came home from work and the house was too quiet. No cartoons, no laughter, no sound of little feet running on the floor. I called out, "Isaiah?" Nothing. I walked through the rooms, heart racing. His toys were gone. His coat was missing from the hook. So was hers. I grabbed my phone and called her. Straight to voicemail. Called again. Same thing. I remember standing in that kitchen, my knees weak, hands shaking so bad I had to hold the counter to stay up. I thought about every time she said, "I just need a chance to be his mama again." I never thought she'd just take him. Not like that. Hours passed before the phone finally rang. Her number. "Where are you?" I said. Voice breaking. She said, "I'm sorry, Mary. I need time with my son. Just us. Please don't be mad." "Mad," I said. "You took that baby without even saying goodbye. Do you know what that does to him?" She was crying now. "I didn't mean no harm. I just didn't think you'd let me." I closed my eyes, trying to calm the storm inside me. "Where are you?" She paused. "At Mama's old place." I grabbed my keys, didn't even grab a coat. I drove straight there. When I pulled up, the lights were on. Isaiah was sitting on the floor inside, playing with that same toy truck. My sister was on the couch, holding her head in her hands. I walked in, and she looked up like a child caught doing wrong. "Mary," she whispered, "I didn't mean to scare you." I knelt down and pulled Isaiah close. "You don't ever leave without telling Auntie again. You hear me?" He nodded, small and scared. Then I turned to her. "You want time with him, but not like this. You can't disappear and call it love." Tears streamed down her face. "I just wanted to feel like his mother again. I thought if I had him alone, he'd remember me." I sighed, sitting beside her. "Love don't work like that, baby. You gotta earn it every day, and it takes more than wanting. It takes showing up." She leaned on my shoulder, crying hard. I held her, but my heart was breaking. That night, I brought them both back home, but something in me had shifted. I started locking my doors, started keeping my purse close. Because love don't always mean trust. Summer came and went. The air turned thick and heavy, the kind that makes you tired just breathing. I'd wake up early for work and come home to find her still in bed, curtains drawn. Bills piled up again. She lost her job, said her boss didn't like her attitude. I tried to help her find another, but she didn't want to talk about it. She spent her days sitting on the porch, staring at nothing. Isaiah, though, he was growing fast. Smart boy. He loved his picture books, loved to draw. He'd crawl up into my lap and say, "Tell me about when I was a baby." And I'd smile and say, "You were tiny as a kitten. You used to sleep right here on my chest." He'd giggle and say, "Do it again." And I'd hold him right there in the kitchen, humming low like I did when he was little. Those moments, they saved me, but they also made her jealous. One night, she said, "He loves you more than me." I said softly, "He just knows me better right now. That can change if you keep showing up." She crossed her arms. "You think you're so perfect, don't you? Like you're some kind of saint." I never said that. "Well, everybody else says it. They all say, 'Marry this, marry that,' like you're the only one who ever sacrificed anything." I took a deep breath. "You left him, baby. That's not something people forget easy. But it's never too late to make it right." Her voice cracked. "I don't even know how anymore." I reached for her hand, but she pulled away. That night, she packed a small bag. Since she needed air, I didn't stop her. I'd learned I couldn't. She left quietly, just like before. Only this time, she didn't take Isaiah. When I put him to bed that night, I tucked him in a little tighter, kissed his forehead, and whispered, "No matter what happens, you always got me." And when I turned off the light, I felt something deep inside me let go. She didn't come back that week, or the next. By the third week, I'd stopped checking my phone every 5 minutes, stopped leaving the porch light on. I told myself she needed to find her way, but truth is, I was just tired of being disappointed. Isaiah asked about her a few times. "Where's my mama?" he'd say in that soft voice. I'd sit him on my lap, run my fingers to his little curls, and say, "She's out there figuring things out, baby. But she loves you, okay?" He'd nod, but I could see confusion in his eyes. That kind of confusion no child should ever have to carry. Days turned into months. We settled into our own rhythm, just the two of us. Mornings with cereal and cartoons, evenings with prayers and lullabies. Sometimes I'd catch myself smiling just watching him play. That boy had laughter that could heal cracks in walls. I never stopped praying for her, though. Every night I'd whisper, "Lord, wherever she is, keep her safe. Don't let her fall too far." Then, out of nowhere, one Sunday afternoon, the phone rang. "Mary?" My stomach flipped. "Mama?" Her voice trembled. "Baby, we need to talk." It had been years since she called me anything close to gentle. "What's wrong?" I asked. She hesitated. "It's about your sister." My heart stopped. "Is she—" "She's okay," Mama said quickly, "but she's not doing good. She showed up at our door last night, thin as a rail, said she wanted to make things right. I didn't know whether to cry or curse. Now she shows up? She said she tried before, but she was too ashamed. She kept saying your name. Mary's the only one who never gave up on me." I sat down, hands shaking so bad I nearly dropped the phone. "Did you let her stay?" Mama's voice cracked. "Course we did. We ain't monsters, baby. We all done wrong." There was a long pause. Then she said, "She wants to see Isaiah." I closed my eyes. The thought of my parents, who once kicked her out, now asking for forgiveness, it was too much to process. "She wants to come tomorrow," Mama added. "With us." I couldn't speak for a moment. The idea of all of them, my parents, my sister, that old pain, standing on my porch again after everything. All I said was, "All right, come by in the morning." That night, I didn't sleep. I just sat by the window, watching the moonlight spill across the floor, thinking about every choice that led us here. Morning came slow. I put on my best dress, the one with the soft yellow flowers, not because I wanted to look good, but because I needed strength. Somehow that dress made me feel closer to the woman I used to be. Isaiah was playing with his blocks in the living room when I heard the sound of tires on gravel. My chest tightened. I went to the window. There they were, my parents, standing together like time had folded in on itself. And next to them, my sister. She looked fragile, smaller than I remembered. Her hands fidgeted with the strap of her purse. When I opened the door, Mama's eyes filled with tears. "Mary," she whispered, "you look just like your daddy's mama." I nodded, too full of feeling to speak. Then I turned to my sister. She couldn't look me in the eye. "I'm sorry," she said softly, "for everything." I wanted to be angry. I wanted to remind her of the nights I stayed up with her baby, the money I spent, the tears I cried. But standing there, I saw a woman who had already been punished enough, by life, by guilt, by her own mistakes. So I just said, "Come in." Isaiah peeked around the corner. When he saw her, he hesitated. Then he walked up, slow and unsure. She knelt down, her voice shaking. "Hi, sweetheart. You remember me?" He looked at her for a long moment, then said, "You're the lady from the pictures." She broke right there, covering her mouth as tears fell. "Yes, baby, that's me." Mama started crying too, whispering prayers under her breath. Daddy just stood still, jaw tight, eyes wet. We all sat at the table after that. Nobody spoke much, just the sound of forks against plates and quiet sobs here and there. Then Daddy said, "We all made mistakes, but family's family. Ain't no point dying with bitterness." Mama reached across the table and took my hand. "You carried us all when we turned away. I don't know how to thank you." I swallowed the lump in my throat. "Just don't let it happen again." My sister nodded. "It won't, I promise." For the first time in years, my house felt whole. The days that followed felt strange, quiet, but not heavy. My house hadn't held that much family in a long time. You could almost hear the walls breathing again. Mama started cooking in my kitchen like she owned it. Fried chicken, cornbread, the works. The smell alone felt like childhood. Daddy fixed that loose porch step he always used to fuss about. And my sister, she spent every waking minute with Isaiah. At first, he kept his distance. He'd play near her, but not with her. But one afternoon, I found them sitting under the big oak tree out back. She was reading to him from one of his picture books, her voice soft and shaky, like she was afraid to get it wrong. He looked up at her and said, "You read funny." She laughed. A real laugh, one I hadn't heard since we were girls. "That's 'cause I'm out of practice," she said. Something in that moment healed a piece of me I didn't even know was still cracked. That night, when I tucked Isaiah into bed, he said, "Aunt Mary, my mama's nice now." I smiled, brushed his curls back, and whispered, "Yeah, baby, she's trying." And for once, I believed it. The next morning, my sister joined me on the porch. She handed me a cup of coffee, sat down beside me, and said, "You should have given up on me long time ago." I looked at her. I almost did, but something told me not to. She nodded, eyes glistening. "I didn't deserve you, or him." I reached over, took her hand. "We all fall, baby. Some just take longer to stand back up." We sat there watching the sun rise, the light painting the sky pink and gold. For the first time in years, there was peace between us. Not perfect, not whole, but peace. As weeks turned into months, my sister started working again. Nothing fancy, just part-time at the grocery store, but she was proud of it. She'd come home with tired feet and a little cash, and she'd say, "It ain't much, but it's honest." I could see the change in her. She smiled more. She talked softer. She stopped blaming the world and started showing up for her son. One evening, she came into the kitchen holding Isaiah. "Mary," she said, "he wants to stay with me tonight in my room. Is that okay?" I hesitated for just a second, then I nodded. "Of course, baby. He's your boy." I watched them walk down the hall, hand in hand. For a moment, I felt a strange ache, like pride and loss tangled together. Later that night, when the house was quiet, I sat on the couch and looked at that old photo on the wall. Mama, Daddy, my sister, and me, back when we thought nothing could break us. I whispered, "We made it through, Lord. Not perfect, but together." And I swear, for a moment, I felt my heart lighten. The next morning, the smell of pancakes filled the air. My sister was in the kitchen, Isaiah standing on a stool beside her, stirring batter. She looked up and grinned. "Your turn to rest, Mary. I got this." It was such a simple thing, but it meant everything. For years, I'd carried the weight of everyone's mistakes, and now, watching her flip those pancakes with Isaiah giggling by her side, I finally felt something I hadn't felt in a long time: relief. Time has a way of softening even the hardest edges. That year, everything slowed down, settled. My sister moved into her own small apartment, just a few streets over, close enough that Isaiah could run down the sidewalk and be at my door in 5 minutes flat. We started having Sunday dinners again. Mama would bring her sweet tea. Daddy would tell the same old stories, and Isaiah would sit in the middle of it all, soaking up the laughter. Sometimes I'd just sit back and watch. The sound of clinking dishes, the smell of collard greens and cornbread, the way everyone leaned in when someone spoke. It reminded me of who we used to be, a family that loved, even when we forgot how to show it. One night after dinner, my sister helped me wash the dishes. She looked over and said quietly, "I never thanked you for saving me and for raising him when I couldn't." I set the plate down, looked at her. "You don't owe me thanks. Just keep doing right by him. That's all I ever wanted." Her eyes filled up, and she whispered, "You're more than my sister, Mary. You're my second chance." I smiled. "Then don't waste it." She nodded, tears spilling down. That was the moment I knew the storm had finally passed. That Christmas, my house was full again. Isaiah helped me hang lights along the porch, and my sister brought over a tiny tree she'd bought with her first bonus from work. It wasn't much, just a little thing from the discount store, but she said, "It's ours." We decorated it together with old ornaments I'd saved through the years. Some were chipped, some had missing hooks, but we made them shine anyway. That night, after everyone went to bed, I sat by that tree with a cup of cocoa and watched the lights blink soft and slow. I thought about all the pain we'd been through, every slammed door, every tear, every sleepless night. And I realized something. Sometimes love doesn't show up the way you expect it to. Sometimes it comes broken, messy, covered in scars. But if you hold on long enough, it still finds its way home. When I finally crawled into bed, I whispered, "Thank you, Lord, for not letting me give up when I wanted to." The next morning, Isaiah came running in with a small box wrapped in newspaper. "Merry Christmas, Aunt Mary." I opened it carefully. Inside was a photo. Me, him, and my sister, all smiling. He'd drawn a little heart around us in red crayon. My throat tightened. "Baby, this is beautiful." He grinned. "Mama says family means forever." And right then, I believed it. Years passed, slow and gentle. Isaiah grew taller, his laugh deeper, his heart just as kind. My sister kept her promise. She stayed steady. No more running, no more secrets. She worked hard, took night classes, and built a quiet life she could be proud of. And me? I finally learned how to rest. For so long, I carried everyone's burdens, held the pieces when everything fell apart. But now, I could sit on my porch with a cup of tea and watch the world without feeling like it was falling on my shoulders. Sometimes, I'd see my sister walking Isaiah home from school. They'd be talking, laughing, sharing something I used to dream of seeing. I'd wave from the porch, and she'd call out, "Love you, Mary." And every time, I'd whisper back, "Love you more." One Sunday, she came over alone, just like old times. We sat in the kitchen, the smell of cornbread filling the air. She said, "You know, Mama told me once that God gives every family one person to hold it together." I smiled. "And what did you tell her?" She reached over and squeezed my hand. "I told her that person was you." I felt tears slide down my face before I even realized I was crying. "I just did what I could," I said softly. She nodded. "You did more than that. You saved us." That night, after she left, I sat alone for a while, looked around my old house. Those walls had seen everything. Pain, laughter, prayers whispered in the dark. But they'd also seen healing. I walked into Isaiah's old room. His drawings were still on the wall, faded but full of life. I touched one. Me, him, and his mama holding hands under a big yellow sun. And I smiled. Now I'm an old woman. My knees ache when the rain comes, and I can't stand too long without my back complaining. But when I look around, I see love in every corner of this house. Isaiah's grown now, got a family of his own. He calls me every Sunday after church. Always says, "Aunt Mary, you taught me what family really means." I tell him, "Boy, I just showed you what it looks like to love people, even when it hurts." He laughs, same as he did when he was little, and says, "You still the strongest woman I know." I hang up every time with tears in my eyes and a heart so full it almost hurts. Last week, my sister came by with gray streaks in her hair and smile lines around her eyes. She hugged me tight, the kind of hug that says thank you without words. She whispered, "You still my safe place, Mary." I said, "And you always will be my baby sister." We sat on the porch till the sun went down, listening to the crickets sing. No anger, no regret, just peace. I looked at her, at the sky turning gold and pink, and thought, maybe that's what grace really looks like. Not loud, not perfect, just quiet love that stays. You know, when I look back now, I realize something I didn't understand back then. Family ain't about blood alone. It's about who stays when the storm hits. It's about who holds your hand when everyone else lets go. I used to think love was just about sacrifice, that the more you gave, the better person you were. But I've learned something different with age. Love's about grace, about seeing someone's worst and still believing there's something worth saving inside them. My sister hurt me in ways I never thought I could forgive. But if I'd held on to that pain, it would have swallowed me whole. Forgiving her didn't mean forgetting. It meant freeing myself from the weight of it. When you get old like me, you realize peace don't come from having a perfect family. It comes from accepting the one you got and loving them anyway. Sometimes I still wake up in the middle of the night and think about those early years. The cold nights, the empty crib, the ache that lived in my chest. And then I think about now, the laughter, the Sunday dinners, the second chances, and I can't help but smile. I think God knew exactly what he was doing when he sent her back to me. Maybe he was testing both of us. Maybe he was teaching me that love doesn't always look the way we want it to, but it's always worth it. Last week, Isaiah brought his little girl to visit. She's got those same big eyes he had as a baby. She climbed right into my lap and asked Grandaunt Mary, "Tell me a story." So I told her one, not about princes or castles, but about two sisters who lost their way and found each other again. When I finished, she looked up at me and said, "That's a happy story." And I laughed, wiping my eyes. Yeah, baby, it sure is. Later that evening, after they left, I sat by the window like I always do. The sky was turning orange, the same way it did that day I first brought my sister home. Only this time, my heart wasn't heavy. It was light, full. I whispered, "Thank you, Lord, for giving me the strength to love when it was hard, and the grace to keep believing when it seemed impossible. Because love don't fix everything, but it sure does make the healing worth it. And if there's one thing I've learned, it's this. Family might break your heart, but sometimes they're the very ones who help it beat again."